Yo, what up? We are back for another episode of Red Zone in the Lab podcast. And today, y'all know how we do it. We're going to review, preview, however you want to do it, the matchup this Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals. We got SI writer Donnie Druin joining us today to talk all things Cardinals. I got a few questions for them. Some of you may have a few questions. Just throw them in the chat and we can get to it. We definitely will. So on the other side of this, we're going to get right into it.
Shout out Red Zone Lab podcast.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's Benjamin St. Jude, DB for the Washington Commanders. I want to give a big shout out to Red Zone in the Lab podcast.
Welcome back, Red Zone in the Lab podcast. I am Deuce, and joining me is Donnie, SI writer. How you doing today, Don? We definitely appreciate you taking the time to join us today, buddy.
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me on. You guys are a really good community. I was telling you before the show, Washington fans are crazy, man. Like everybody talks about like the Browns or maybe the Seahawks are some of the best fans. Like Washington fans ride for the team, man. So it's really cool. The stuff you guys are doing, the community you guys have. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is definitely a great community, especially for all the turmoil we've been through for the last 30 years. You know, we hung in there with each other, man. We hung in there with each other. So we definitely looking forward to the future. But just real quick, I always like to just kind of get a little bit of background of any new guests that we definitely hope to become a friend of the channel. Just a little background of exactly who you are, Donnie.
Yeah.
And are you a fan? Because sometimes, guys that cover teams is not actually fans of the team.
I'm not a fan of the Cardinals. No, I'm actually from Pittsburgh. So born and raised, black and gold in my blood. Diehard Steeler fan for a very, very long time. About halfway through high school, I moved out here to Phoenix, Arizona. And, I played football all my life. Unfortunately, I didn't really grow to 6'3", 6'4", so I couldn't play in the league. I still wanted to find a way to get involved somehow. I was always a pretty good writer, and I just kind of meshed sports and writing, and somehow, some way, I kind of stumbled, and here I am.
For sure, we definitely it's a nice community at a six times champs, what they like to call themselves on Twitter. Is that difficult though? Like, is it like, is there any bias in there? Is it like,
Nah, you would think so, but like I've been so locked into Cardinals coverage, man. Like I don't even. I mean, there'll always be a piece of me because like Pittsburgh, like a place like that, it's in your blood. Like you really can't get rid of it. But like I don't find myself like actively rooting for them. Like I'm so locked into like Arizona Cardinals coverage. I do Phoenix Suns coverage too, but when you not work for a team, when you cover a team, it's just like 7 days a week, 365 days a year, man. Like it's all gas, no breaks. And so I do like not being from here and not being a fan because I feel like I can look at things objectively. And like I'm in the locker room and the press conferences and that game, so like it's a different feeling being there because I'm definitely best to do what I do, get to be able to look at these guys and talk to them, face to face and establish relationships with them. But by no means am I a fan. I think that's probably for the best.
He got you. So coming into the season, Kyler Murray is, even though he did come back last year, but he had like a year and a half. So you would think that he's fully recovers as much as fully recovered can be as an NFL player, right? So what were the season expectations coming into this year?
They were pretty high. That's kind of weird given that the Cardinals finished 3-14 last season. But like you pointed out, Kyler returned halfway through the year from major ACL and meniscus surgery. So I think the ending of last year, Kyler leading them to big wins over teams like the Steelers and the Eagles, being fully healthy, moving into 2024. It's a second year under guys like Jonathan Gannon and general manager Monty Austinfort. They added some key weapons, obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. in the NFL draft. They definitely improved the team from 2023. And I think think if you didn't just look at the box score and you watch the Cardinals on a week-to-week basis, they fought hard. They find themselves in a lot of games they may have not necessarily been pegged to win by a lot of people. Washington week 1, perfect example not last off season, but 2023. They almost beat the Commanders before the Commanders eventually pulled it out. It's kind of been the case of the Cardinals. They hit the roster reset button in a massive, massive way. They got rid of some very big time players. They said, hey, if we're going to do this rebuild, we're going to do it right. It's year 2. I think a lot of people around here before the season, if you asked them what would have been a successful year, I think they would have told you probably 6 wins, doubling their win total from last year. They're not maybe quite playoff contenders quite yet. If they made a push, I wouldn't be super surprised, but there's still a lot of holes in the roster, but they just want to see progress. They want to see teams competing. They want to see Kyler Murray fully healthy for a year. And I think about that 6 or 7 win territory was about that like sweet spot for them.
Talking about Marvin Harris's, which is one of the most exciting prospects that I ever covered. And I usually start looking into, college football, towards February, March. I'm not a big, guru in that area, but anything the team may need, I always kind of look at the top prospects. And we know it was a lot of stuff, right? A lot of out, off the field drama. His dad is still mad for some things that happened decades ago. So all of that type of things was going on. How did you all cover that? Did that kind of affect the team in any way? Like, how did you all cover just the all-field stuff with Marvin Harris?
Yeah, it wasn't anything super crazy because when you actually, and I feel like a player's reaction to all of that stuff really dictates how you go about it. So if Marv would have got in front of a camera and said, yeah, I didn't do X, Y, and Z because of this, like I just wanted to prove myself, and kind of came in with a chip on his shoulder, you'd be like, okay, like this is kind of what he was going for. We need to adapt to that. Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably the nicest dude I've ever talked to in the locker room. He is so humble. He is so at peace with what he did. He is very soft spoken, and it's crazy because you watch him. He's what 6'3", 6'4". He glides like a Rolls Royce. Like, it's wild. He makes all of these crazy plays, and then you go and you interview him after a game, and he's incredibly nice, incredibly soft spoken. Doesn't feel like there's a mean bone on his body, but when he gets on the field, he kind of flips that switch. But whenever you talk to him, he comes off as really sincere, and so you see all the outside noise about him not doing stuff at the combine or not doing this, and then you still have the whole fanatic still. Like people still can't buy his jersey officially. Like they have to order it off of like Chinese websites and stuff. So, all of that aside, I think it was really easy just to say, hey, I understand why Marvin Harrison did X, Y, and Z, because whenever you talk to him, whenever you're in a room with him, you feel, oh, okay, there's no malicious intent behind it. He just wanted to be prepared, for week 1 of the regular season.
So Kyler Murray, and I think Kyler Murray was like, I don't think it was many, but he was kind of one of the rookies that kind of got that rookie extension. As soon as they was available, as soon as it opened up, which was kind of rare, right? Then he goes to the season, gets hurt, and he comes back last year. What is the expectation of Kyle? Like, do the fan base, do the media, do the team believe that Kyler Murray can be a Super Bowl caliber quarterback?
Yeah, the team will definitely do so, and I think whenever the team fired guys like Cliff Kingsbury and former general manager Steve Keim, a big requisite to come in and coach the Cardinals was, do you believe in Kyler Murray? Because he's coming off of torn ACL, he's going to miss about half the year, but he's going to be back. He's going to be locked and loaded, and he's on a 5-year, $230.5 million contract. Like this guy's not going anywhere, at least for the next couple of years. So if you're going to come here, you got to like him. And ever since head coach Jonathan Gannon took the podium in Arizona, he has done nothing but publicly praise Kyler Murray and has uplifted him from day one. And I think that's made a very, very big impact, because if you watched Cliff and Kyler towards the end of their tenure in 2022, they didn't get along. I don't want to say they hated each other, because I don't know what their personal dynamic was like, but you saw multiple times during games, and cameras caught it, where they were kind of jawing back and forth at each other. And you don't need to be in the Cardinals media room to see that maybe things weren't exactly going the way that everybody had planned them. Whenever it comes to the fan base, I feel like Kyler's probably one of the more polarizing figures in the league, or at least in terms of Arizona, because you have half the fan base that says, hey, you know what? This guy obviously got the huge contract extension for a reason. He's mobile. He's quick. He can make almost every single throw. let's ride with him. Then you have the other half saying, hey, you know what? He's made one playoff game in 5 years. He lost a playoff game. He was completely embarrassed. He hasn't done anything since winning Rookie of the Year, his first season. It's time to move on. You don't necessarily win a lot of games and a lot of Super Bowls with a quarterback like Kyler Murray. So it's 50-50 down the board. The team loves him. The fan base is split on him. I think the media is pretty high on him, and I think you can kind of include me in that too. I think offensive coordinator Drew Petzing, and I think we'll touch on this a little bit later. The system he runs compared to what Cliff Kingsbury had him doing in the NFL is night and day different and night and day better in such a good way for Kyler Murray as the person and as a quarterback. I could tell you, I think Kyler looks happier. I think he's much happier under the new regime compared to how he was with Cliff. I think the ACL injury kind of made him take a step back and say, hey, you got to realize that you're blessed right now, man. Your franchise quarterback. And I think that just made him hit a massive reset button. He's a much better player and a much better person because of it.
And yes, let's get right into the offensive scheme, because that was one of the things that we had a lot of conversations about is Cliff Kingsbury and his time there in Arizona. He came in, it was pretty much pass. You got D-Hop one-on-one. Let's get it up to him. D-Hop down there somewhere. Let's throw it up to him. D-Hop goes down. They bring in Ertz. All of a sudden, James Conner is being more involved. He has I think, an All-Pro year, right? A Pro Bowl, All-Pro, something. I know he had some crazy numbers.
He had a good year for them.
Yeah, one year. So it was kind of a little change. Cliff showed a little change. So now in this year, that was the thing. Okay, what is he going to do? Is he going to have a lot of pre-snap motion? Because that's not something that he does, right? You have different coordinators that believe in kind of setting things up, having backside square routes kind of set up. But his is just, look, I'm just going to send both of my backs out. They're going to spread them out. That's going to open up the linebackers. I'm going to get in the middle of the field. He's just real basic. It doesn't seem like he has a whole lot of, setting up this play off of that play. So, but talking about like that change for Kyler Murray and this offensive scheme, as you pointed out, how does that help Kyler Murray take him to a whole nother level, which it seems like he was kind of not going anywhere in the Kingsbury scheme?
Yeah, it felt like the first couple of years were really exciting for Kyler, but it felt like he's kind of going nowhere fast.
Yeah.
I haven't watched admittedly a whole lot of Commanders games, so if this strikes a chord with anybody, let me know. But Cliff very much operated under that like shotgun heavy, like spread everybody out like you were talking about. Don't do anything crazy. Just take what the defense gives you. And I don't even want to call it a spread offense, but like it almost ran similarly to that. I know a lot of people weren't exactly fans of Cam Taylor-Britt and what he had said about the college offense with Cliff. But I'll tell you, getting Kyler Murray under center, establishing the run first and foremost, getting that play action going, just keeping the defense honest and not letting them to get their keys early in the play development. I think that's been so big for Kyler. It's just because whenever you have that, Kyler's a smart dude. Kyler is an incredibly smart quarterback. I don't think he gets a lot of credit for that. When you're able to effectively run that offense and you're able to open things up through the run, like it seems like Kyler always has a primary read available to him. And if he doesn't, he always knows where the check down option is. He knows where the hot route is, right? Like getting Kyler to be mobile, keeping the defense honest instead of just lining up and shocking every play, and the defense already kind of seeing what they were doing. There's not a whole lot of Cliff Kingsbury motion in Washington. Correct me if I'm wrong. But
it's okay. So we really didn't see any game one, right? And the media here can be very, very loud. The fans can be very loud, and you saw a lot. Even though I don't think it was to get Terry in favorable positions, but it did. He moved Terry around a lot, and he did that the last game. Also, he's running more 11 personnel, more 12 personnel. He's not spreading out as much. It could be because of the receiver core, but he's not doing it as much. So you still see Cliff Kingsbury and what we kind of watched with him and Kyler the first couple years. But at the same time, it's like a light bulb came in and he was more receptive and open to some different things. And I think that got a lot to do with Anthony Lynn and Brian, the guy from the East, Brian Johnson.
Okay, yeah. I know a lot of people here after Cliff had gotten fired, there weren't really any hard feelings, but there's kind of a sentiment of maybe he's a better coordinator than a head coach. And I feel like that's the case for a lot of people.
I
don't make him take on that CEO role. Just let him focus on the offense and see what he can do. And I think, just looking at that Monday night game, Washington had, you saw the potential of what the Commanders can be. Granted, there's no Austin Eckler this week, but Brian Robinson is a damn good running back. Yeah, but like all in all, just moving this conversation back to Kyler, but just keeping defenses honest and just letting Kyler have plays develop, through like the short, the intermediate, and even like the long game. I think it's been so much more beneficial just because you watch the Cardinals kind of sputter at times because they weren't able to run the ball because they were mostly out of shotgun. And it's so hard to do that whenever you're asking guys, especially running backs, to take the handoff right next to the quarterback and then get momentum before getting tackled 3 yards in the line of scrimmage. It's just a much better pro style offense. And granted, Kyler did have success with that at the college level, at Oklahoma winning the Heisman, but this isn't college. This is the NFL.
Exactly. Our secondary boy, something else. So one of my guys wants to trade value of Buda Baker.
Man, like Buda's been in a lot of trade conversations. He's in the last year of his contract. He's an all-pro. One, I don't think the Cardinals are going to trade him. I think if they did want to trade him, they would have offloaded him last year. They were saying like they wanted a second-round pick, but like I want a lottery ticket that has winning numbers on it. Doesn't mean I'm getting it. They probably would have had to settle for probably a third rounder. I feel like that price only devalued with him being another year older, and you have to pay Buda on top of trading for him too. So it's a lot.
Yeah. So the defense, give me some perspective because I did watch the game this past week. I did see some pressure. It was a pretty solid game. I know they played a solid last year. And that guy Zavin Collins, my goodness, he's like a defensive tackle playing linebacker. That guy's huge. So give us a little perspective on the defense.
Yeah, they run out of a base 3-4, even though most teams kind of run out of nickel nowadays. They don't blitz often. Their blitz percentage is kind of near the bottom of the league. So like they don't bring pressure. I wouldn't anticipate them to bring a lot of pressure against Jaden Daniels, but it's funny. I asked Jonathan Gannon today in the press conference. I'm like, hey, you guys played Josh Allen a little bit earlier. They're different quarterbacks, but can you kind of draw from that experience? And he's like, yeah, we also played Lamar last year. So you kind of got to tailor the game plan. Towards the second half against Buffalo, they started adjusting and they started kind of throw the kitchen sink at Josh Allen. Josh Allen handled it well. He scored 2 touchdowns on the ground. I'm curious if the defense tries to do that against Jaden Daniels. Obviously, he's an extremely talented runner. So they don't blitz often. They run heavy zone. I think 71% of the time. It's mostly cover 3 and cover 4. A lot of that. You'll see cover 0 sometimes too. But it's a lot of zone. They don't blitz a lot. They kind of rely on some athletic guys up front in the front 7 to make plays for them.
Yeah, and I'm very interested to see because so far Jaden has been really good against the blitz, getting the ball out, being able to move off his launch pad, being able to scramble, pick up yards, being able to extend the play. Especially the last game, he was having the first couple games he would kind of once his eyes hit the ground, he was kind of take off. But this past game, he looked to extend the play a little bit more outside of the pocket. So it seems like they like to keep everything underneath, keep everything in front of them. And what's the speed of the linebackers? I think that's going to matter a lot for us.
Yeah, Kaiser White is not the most athletic guy in the world. I
tell you what, that Wilson Senior guy,
Mac Wilson,
Wilson. Oh my goodness,
yeah.
I love him, man.
Well, and I was going to say, you guys should be very familiar with Kaiser White because he came over from Philadelphia and he had some damn good seasons in the Eagles uniform. Not that anybody here wants to hear that, but but Kaiser is a dog. I think he's phenomenal to run support. Where you kind of get tricky is having him drop back into that zone coverage. I'm really glad you brought up Mac Wilson because he's kind of really that versatile piece for this Cardinals defense. He started the year last year in New England as the inside linebacker. He transitioned to edge the second half of the year, and the Cardinals have kind of been deploying him everywhere. He's a really versatile dude, an extremely smart dude. I think he's one of 17, 20 players to have 1 sack and 20 tackles this year, some crazy stat like that. He's pretty invaluable to them. I will tell you though, that edge rushing room, they lost BJ Ojulari, their second round pick from last season, to a season ending injury. Darius Robinson, their first round pick this year. He's on IR for this game. He might be back
I wanted
next
to
week,
see him play.
He showed so much promise. I think he'll come back very, very strong. They just lost Justin Jones, an interior guy, for the season with I forgot what injury, but that's 3 of your potential starters down on the defensive front. The Cardinals are right outside the top 10 in terms of actual sacks. I think they have 9 on the year. But when you look at the pressure rate, when you look at the quarterback rush rate, they all rank at the bottom of the league. And their guys, Dennis Gardeck and Zaven Collins, like you had said, teams don't double team them because they do not worry or they do not stress about them. They don't have like an elite name you have to game plan for. I think that'll help the Commanders a lot, especially Cliff too. You don't have to worry about your rookie quarterback and chase down all day. Edge rusher wouldn't worry about. The run defense is borderline atrocious, and I think that's why Brian Robinson might have a monster game on Sunday. Secondary has been hit or miss. Obviously, you have Buda and Jalen Thompson in the back. I think that's a really good safety duo. Garrett Williams, your second-year corner, is probably their best one. He operates out of the slot. And then you have Sean Murphy Bunting and Starling Thomas. They are what they are. They're not terrible, but they're not phenomenal either. So they went to this offseason upgrading the offense. I think they knew the defense was going to be a little bit suspect, but they're still in a rebuilding mode, and you can't fix everything in one offseason.
You can't fix everything in the offseason, right? Like we try to have this conversation with folk, but everyone, we want everything now. We want a microwave society. Everyone wants to go to the Super Bowl, which I understand. But look, you can't fix everything, even in Madden, unless you cheat, like going in and adjust salaries and all that. You can't even do it in Madden, right? What about what I did want to ask before we go forward to the impact players, the offensive tackles. I see one of them came back, and his name is right here. We were talking about him. Beecham, yeah. I saw one. So, but I saw that you had like 4 down. What is that looking like as far as the tackles is concerned?
Yeah, so they inked Jonah Williams, former Bengals right tackle, to a 2-year, $30 million extension.
Yeah.
After 1 quarter, week 1 against Buffalo, he gets put on IR with a knee injury. Nobody knows when he's coming back. So they signed Kelvin Beachum, that veteran swing tackle, into right tackle. He plays against Buffalo. He gets worked against Von Miller for 2 sacks. He bounces back pretty nicely in week 2 against the Rams. He picks up a hamstring injury ahead of week 3 against the Detroit Lions. He's questionable heading into the week. The Cardinals have to elevate their 2 practice squad tackles that they have, because that's it. But behind Kelvin Beachum, it's nobody. They elevate their 2 practice squad tackles, Jackson Barton and Charlie Heck. Barton played 8 snaps the last 2 years before he was kind of thrust into the starting spot against Aiden Hutchinson. Did pretty well against them.
Yeah, I was about to say he kind of, yeah.
Yeah, no, the only sack Hutchinson had last week was against Paris Johnson on the opposite side, and that came in the 4th quarter. Barton injured his toe on like the final drive of the game. So they were on their 4th string right tackle moving, into the final drive against Detroit. Beacham's currently questionable heading into Sunday. I'm not really sure. I would pay close attention to the practice squad elevations tomorrow on Saturday, because if they elevate both tackles, Charlie Heck and Jackson Barton, I'm pretty confident Beacham is not going to play. Beacham was present at practice today. I saw it with my own eyes. So that is something to watch out for. But when you're on your 4th string right tackle 3 weeks into the season, like what do you do?
Impact players. Where are some impact players? Because I don't, I mean, you are not in our division anymore, right? And there are not a lot of Cardinals fans on here on Twitter. Yeah. So what are some impact players outside of the household names?
I think you highlighted one earlier, Mack Wilson. I think Mack Wilson has come into his defense as a free agent and has been everything that Jonathan Gannon and defensive coordinator Nick Rallis could have ever wanted him to be. He's fast, he's violent, he's smart, he's everything you had looked for in a prototypical linebacker. The fact that he could play as an inside linebacker next to Kaiser White or line up on an edge and kind of get after the quarterback and rush them and put pressure on them, I think is going to be invaluable. I'd be really interested to see how they cover Jaden Daniels on Sunday, because I don't think he's like another quarterback they've played this year. They played Josh Allen, but Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels are 2 totally different animals in their own respects. If they do spy, I think Mack Wilson would be that guy. I'm not 100% sure. Moving over to the offensive side of the ball, this might sound a little bit expected or cheesy, but James Conner. I'll tell you right now, if the Cardinals do not establish a run, they will struggle. And I think if you watched that Lions game last week, they were not able to get the run game going. Yeah. The Detroit defense really stuffed them and held everything at the line of scrimmage. And most of everything the Cardinals like to do, Deuce, comes from play action. And you can't run play action if you're not running the ball successfully. The Lions shut them down pretty much in the first and the second half, or after the first drive. I think the Cardinals scored first and they ended up with 10 points, I believe.
It was vice versa. I think Lions scored, and then the Cardinals came right back down and scored.
Yeah. And then after that, they just
It
struggled.
was yeah.
The Cardinals, they run a lot of 13, 12 personnel. They love to run the ball. They will try to run the ball no matter who you are. And if they're not successful, I think that puts offensive coordinator Drew Petzing to a bind because so much of his game plan is tied to drawing defenses in, drawing that front seven in with the rushing attack, and then everything opens up behind them. So if James Conner can't get going, it's going to be another very long day for the Cardinals offense.
A friend of the chat, Radar wants to know how has Paris Johnson been?
He's been good. There were a lot of questions on whether or not he would slide from right to left because they drafted him out of Ohio State, number 6 pick last year. He played at right tackle opposite of DJ Humphries last year. This offseason, Humphries gets cut. He had the torn ACL. They moved him to left tackle to sign Jonah Williams to be at right tackle. There were a lot of arguments that Johnson's natural position is more at left tackle anyway. And so there were some, like, do you move him? Do you let him keep building off the success he had at right tackle? Through 3 games, I think he's played great. I think he's allowed maybe 1 sack to Aiden Hutchinson last week. Came in the fourth quarter. That's going to happen against premier pass rushers, especially against a second-year guy. But I think for my money's worth, Paris Johnson's been very, very solid so far. I think there were a lot of people questioning that pick, but when you get a franchise tackle to protect your franchise quarterback, only good things are going to come from there.
We talked about most of the injuries, so just Trey McBride, how big of a miss? Because Eckler is a huge miss for us. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
How big of a miss is McBride?
Dude, that's huge. That's Kyler's security blanket. He's second only to Marvin Harrison Jr. targets. Trey had 21. Marvin Harrison Jr. has 22. When you talk about the kind of player McBride is, he's a big physical dude. He came down with a lot of tough 50-50 catches for the Cardinals both last year and the first couple of weeks of the season. They seem to like Elijah Higgins, but Elijah Higgins is more of like a spread him out receiver kind of tight end and not capable of doing both. I'm really interested to see if Kyler pushes the ball towards the boundary a little bit more. McBride wasn't a phenomenal blocker, but he could get the job done. But overall, I feel pretty confident saying McBride is definitely one of the better tight ends in the game. And I think they haven't had to play without him quite yet. And I'm just so intrigued to see how that game plan kind of evolves without one of their best players.
Yeah, I can guarantee with our secondary and our corners, Marvin Harrison probably is going to have 16 targets.
You think so?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Our cornerbacks is not good whatsoever. So if he does decide to go out on the boundary, there can be some success, especially if we're not getting home. That's been our issue. When we dial up pressure, we don't get home, and our cornerbacks doesn't have that talent to stick with receivers more than 3 seconds and straight down here from there.
That's not good news.
No, not at all. All right. So how do you expect this game to play out?
Yeah, I don't love the Cardinals defense. I know there's been a lot of talk about Washington's defense or the lack thereof. Arizona's isn't too far ahead of them. I do think they do have the better defensive unit, and I think that kind of gives them the edge in this game. I would not be surprised if this was like a 28-24 game, just depending on who had the ball last, because the Cardinals really struggle against mobile quarterbacks. And if Jaden continues showing that progression he has from week 1 to week 3, I think he'll definitely find some deep balls to Terry McLaurin. The Cardinals are notorious for their secondary, allowing massive games to receivers. I was really hoping
every number one has got over +20, I think.
No, something crazy. I think a big thing with Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, but with McLaurin, he loves that deep ball, and Jaden Daniels obviously is kind of his patent and throw. So as a guy who drafted Terry in fantasy, I wouldn't be upset with a huge McLaurin day. But final score prediction, I'll go Cardinals 28, Washington 24. I do think both teams are going to put up points.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that. And look, I definitely appreciate you joining. During the off season, we kind of go around the NFL just to kind of get some deeds on all of the teams if we play them on that. So we definitely would love to have you back on, Donnie. So we definitely appreciate you joining. Outside of let me just let everyone know how to find you. Where are you? Different platforms.
Yeah, at Donnie Druin on Twitter and X. Follow the websites, si.com/NFL/Cardinals. You can find us on YouTube, Arizona Cardinals on SI, which has hit over 1,000 subs. I think we're coming up on 2K. So, really appreciate you having me on. I'd love to come back in the offseason. Shout out to everybody in the chat, and thanks for joining.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, shout out everyone to the chat. We definitely appreciate all of you for listening, all of you for watching. We know your time is very valuable for you to spend it with us. We definitely appreciate it. Remember, do it because you love it, not because it loves you. One beat, one sound, one heart.